So I'm Chris Romano. I'm with OVH, and I've been with OVH since May 8th. How many people here are aware or familiar with OVH?
Familiar or no?
No?
Familiar or no?
Yeah? But you don't know what they do, maybe the technologies. Okay. So hopefully we'll clarify some of that stuff. And I got Trey, one of our tech marketing gurus, in the room too, and he has a session at 3:30. You guys should really go attend that if you see what you find, if you find something interesting here and you want to know a little more detail. Trey is one of our guys that's kind of leading the charge on what the U.S. product set's going to look like and stuff like that. So really cool stuff. So a little story about me. I was in IT in the NASDAQ stock market all through the 1990s. I got recruited by VMware in 2000 to be their first field SE. I was employee 87. I spent 16 years there, right? So, I like the company, man. I was a fan. The OVH sale happened. OVH purchased vCloud Air, and we were asked to go with. And after a lot of thought, after finding jobs at VMware, after looking at the technology and knowing that my team was coming over with me, I decided to make the move and come to OVH because it's pretty exciting. We're literally building a new company in the U.S. This is a brand new start in the U.S. There's been zero presence in the U.S., although we did have some Canadian data centers. So it's kind of like a startup, backed by this global hyperscale company, OVH Group, over here in Europe. So I'm also a virtual Irishman. I'm actually half an Irishman. I'm Romano, and I'm an Irishman, and I have Irish citizenship, which is great when you land at Heathrow and the line's 10 miles long. I just go in that EU line, right? And I now represent OVH as a principal system engineer in America. So we're going to talk to you guys today about security, some of the features, some of the things we do to secure the cloud. I think we do it better than anybody out there today. Some of the technology we have today that we just give you guys as part of your subscription, other companies charge you for. And we'll kind of talk about some of those things like DDoS and some of that stuff. So there may be some forward-looking facts. Again, this typical disclaimer. Don't hold us to anything. We're not committing to any dates or anything like that. Just be aware that this is a future-looking presentation on some level. So we'll talk about who OVH is, right? We'll do a quick product overview so you guys have a good understanding of what OVH offers as a hyperscale cloud company. Talk about defense at the perimeter. So we'll talk about our DDoS mitigation, best in the world. I have a really cool story about what happened a couple years ago as far as DDoS attacks. And it's also very interesting if you go to YouTube, you look at, there's a lot of people love to attack OVH for some reason. There's all these guys, these gamers that create these scripts to try to do a kind of DDoS attack on their perimeter all the time. And then they'll go over to the OVH website and go, look, it's slow. It doesn't load as fast. It's like, come on, man. You can't beat us. Talk about defense within the data center. So a lot of this stuff comes from legacy, the vCloud Air entity that we had at VMware. We did some pretty neat stuff with NSX, and we'll go into the details on that. And then securing the extended data center. So how do we extend the vCloud Air powered by OVH, as it's known today, into your on-premise data center? How do we make that secure, that connection, so that we can extend the data center and it looks, acts, and feels like one contiguous node on your network, basically. And we'll have some Q&A at the end if you guys want. So who is OVH? So we are a global hyperscale company. We have 27 data centers. In the USA, we're actually building the first 2 in Hillsboro, Oregon, and in Bent-Hill, Virginia. And we will expand that to another, I think we're going to have 6 by 2020 is the target. Massive growth. Over 2,000 employees today. They inherited 240 employees from VMware, so that's part of the company today. We have a lot of private equity investing in this. They believe, as do we, that that there could be another large cloud provider in the world. Everything doesn't have to be AWS, Azure, and even Google, who's kind of coming up. CEOs and CIOs say, I want some choice. I want some competition. And we can come in there at very low cost. Our CEO just posted, Octave Klaba just posted on LinkedIn an article about how we're 7 times cheaper than any other cloud provider out there. So we can do some really neat stuff. And we're also the 6th largest cloud provider in the world today based on this NetCraft report. We are also one of the best performing and running Exchange in the cloud. We have some unparalleled hardware and stuff underneath what we do. The other neat thing is that we have 1.3 million customers. So the joke of the USA is we're the largest cloud provider that nobody knows, right? Massive, massive customer base already. What vCloud Air brings to the equation is sort of the enterprise sale. So in America, we're going to try to sell to large corporations, something we've been doing for vCloud Air for a long time, deploying people like MIT. They have a session here they're presenting as well. And again, 20 data centers, 5 countries over 4 continents. By 2020, we hope to have 50 data centers. So massive, massive growth plan. And we build everything. We literally cut the sheet metal to build the walls of the containers in our data center. We build our own servers. We build up to 500 servers a week, depending on what scale we need to grow at. And we have 2 manufacturing sites, one in Montreal, Canada, and one in Roubaix, France. They build their own data centers. They can take an old building and turn it into a data center in months of time. Like I said, they pretty much build, bend, cut everything themselves. And here's the real neat fact. So we actually water cool or liquid cool our servers. We have all those little blue tubes are actually going into a die mounted on every chip that actually cools the chip and then pumps hot water out. They mist it, cool it like a nuclear plant, and then recycle the cold water back in again. And the neat thing about this is it takes away 70% of all water, of all heat. Everything else is natural air cooled in the data center, right? So anybody ever been to an OVH data center? So when you walk in, it's a balmy 70 degrees. There's no air conditioning in the data center at all. You don't freeze, when you're staying in a data center, freezing to death. So 0 air conditioning. Again, this plays into our cost-effective model, how we can sell really, really low-cost dedicated servers and cloud, et cetera, et cetera. So here's our offerings today, right? So the left-hand side is what we had for vCloud Air. It's the private cloud offering built on vSphere, okay? And we have everything from a dedicated capacity or a virtual private cloud to a dedicated capacity to a software-defined data center stack. So effectively, the entire vSphere stack, NSX, vSAN, sitting on your own dedicated hardware. And it comes in the form of X node cluster. So you order your servers, and in 30 minutes time, we have the hardware up, vSphere deployed, servers are ready to go. Your cloud is up, right? Was anybody doing anything in vCloud Air previously? No? All right. So the other cool thing is that we have an OpenStack offering. We call this our public cloud offering, and it's actually based on OpenStack. And it's not like our version or our flavor of OpenStack. It's OpenStack as it exists out there today. Neutron, all those components for you. And then the cool thing is this is all built on our dedicated servers. So those physical servers that we build are the basis for everything we do. And we can have those physical servers deployed in 2 minutes' time. So if you need a 4-node cluster, we can deploy 4 servers. They're up and running. You can load Exchange on them. You can actually co-locate any application that runs on Intel x86 right in our own data center on our own hardware. And it's always the latest version of Intel chipset. So it's a very, very high-performing CPU, et cetera, et cetera. The other neat thing is when those servers reach end of life, and again, I'm going to talk to kind of how the cost efficiency that we provide. When those servers hit the end of life, they take the rack server out, take the guts out, reformat it into a blade, stick it in a blade chassis, and sell it as something we have called Consufi. Anybody heard of Consufi? It's a €5 a month server. So you can go out and buy a server for €5 a month, and it's just basically, last 3-year-old generation server, ready to go. Probably the lowest cost physical server you can get in the cloud today in a hosting provider. So we also own our own fiber optic network. So we lease the cable, but we're not sitting on anybody's underlay. It's actually our network. We own the whole thing through and through. And it can be lit up to 11 terabytes. I think typically it's like 3 to 4 terabytes of bandwidth all the time. And that'll play into our DDoS mitigation strategy I'll talk about a little bit later. And we can do some really, really cool stuff. We can leverage things like Zerto and Veeam to do backup and disaster recovery across our backbone without having to rely on other providers, that kind of thing. And also talk about VRAC, which is our way to create a stretch layer 2 global VLAN across your entire data center and infrastructure in multiple countries. Customer support and service, that kind of comes from legacy vCloud Air. So we have a high touch operating model. So our customer success team literally has almost like a TAM type person, a remote TAM assigned to your account, depending on the size. Obviously, if you buy one server, you'll have some great support, but we'll give you at scale, we'll provide you your own sort of contact, cloud architects, people to work with you, onboard you, architect your solution, et cetera. And again, we're global hyperscale reach, so we are already global as a company. Any questions? No? All right. So this is our network capacity, 11 terabytes across this entire entity. We have POPs everywhere, pretty much 32 POPs globally, so we can co-locate, cross-connect you into Equinix or anybody else you want to work with. This is what we're building out currently in the USA, up in Oregon, and then we have the Virginia data center as well. Again, all connected over this massive, massive network. So we can do some really neat stuff we couldn't do in vCloud Air. We really kind of took the best of both product sets and we're merging them together. All right, so why are we here? So the real story here is the security. We're going to talk about security in depth, how we can protect your assets, your applications in our cloud better than anybody else in the world can, and in a lot of cases better than you can do it on premise. You couldn't afford to build the DDoS infrastructure that we already have in place and that we just give you as part of your subscription. We do some really, really cool stuff. So let's talk about that, defense of the perimeter. Are you guys all familiar with that dying DDoS attack? Remember when that went down? It was a 1 terabyte IoT attack, 150,000 devices attacked dying. It brought down Amazon, it brought down Netflix, everybody went down at some point or another. Some were really heavily impacted. There was a massive revenue hit to some of those companies in doing that. So here's all the headlines. This happened in October 21st, 2016. And then the neat thing is, 1 month earlier in Roubaix, France, we had the exact same attack. But you never heard about it. First of all, Dyn, everybody knows Dyn. But you didn't hear about it because we mitigated it, we killed it, we stopped it in its tracks. Literally on the right, this is our CEO, Octave Klaba, literally tweeting as the attack's happening. He says, oh my God, look what's coming inbound, we're being attacked. And we have the system called a VAC system, and that's what helps us mitigate it. It's a 4-tier solution that basically can shut down any DDoS attack, and we'll talk about how that works as well. So the neat thing is that we completely killed it. It was a 1 terabyte attack. Like I said, we have an 11 terabyte backbone. So in theory, we could handle an attack up to that size. And it's all architected with a custom solution that we built. Let's feel that music, man. Where's the mute key? All right. In any event, just kind of an animation around an attack. Somewhere out there is probably our attack, if you go out there. But this is what a DDoS attack looks like. And they're just going to get bigger and bigger. And right now you can see it says that in 2016 we saw 19 attacks over 100 gigabytes, to include those large 2 terabyte attacks, those single terabyte attacks. So it's just going to be increasing. People are sitting in their basement going, let's do something fun, and they're attacking people, right? They're trying to shut networks down. They want to get the claim to fame or whatever they're looking for exactly. So we're poised to take that on. So here's the kind of attacks we can work against. There's 16 of them. A lot of them are sign attacks. That's the most common attack out there today. And we can just shut that stuff down in its tracks. In 15 seconds to 2 minutes time, we can redirect the traffic, and shut down the attack while allowing the good traffic through, right? So here's what's happening. The top screenshot, number 1, is just what it looks like day to day. Inbound, outbound traffic, everything's good, right? All of a sudden, the DDoS attack begins. So it's coming in over the internet, attacking our backbone. What we do is redirect all the nefarious traffic down to our VAC system, which I'll talk a little bit more about, but it's obviously proprietary, so we're not going to go into too much detail with you. So that reaction time is 15 seconds up to 2 minutes, and we're already stopping the attack, allowing the good traffic to go through, and then we continue to mitigate for 26 hours after the fact. Pretty cool. So we continue to monitor it, right? And again, you're not paying anything for it. If you wanted to do this in some other competitor's cloud, it would cost you $2,000-3,000 a month to leverage some sort of DDoS, or build your own, right? This infrastructure is here, ready to go. So here's the components. There's a pre-firewall, which is managed by us. You actually have your own external firewall that you can manage, so you can add different layers of rules and things at the edge, as well as your own edge gateway firewall inside your tenant. So we've already got 2 layers of protection there as well. So Shield does the UDP redeflection, but all the heavy lifting is done by Armor. So he's the guy who's cleaning up the attack. He's the guy who's halting the attack in its tracks and then allowing the good traffic through. And all that stuff, again, is built and architected by us. And we call this VAC. I guess the idea is vacuum. I mean, you saw the direction of the traffic, how it was kind of vacuumed down into the system and cleaned up, right? So just kind of how we handle this. So 1 of every 2,000 packets is analyzed using NetFlow. That's how we determine an attack is happening. As soon as it happens, we go ahead and do a BGP redirection of all traffic down to the VAC system, where we clean it up, mitigate the attack, and continue to monitor for 26 hours. Pretty cool stuff, right? And then here's the other neat thing about being a global provider and having all those points of presence and all these data centers. We can actually tackle this from a global perspective. So if it was larger than a 1 terabyte TAC and our Roubaix data center was saturated, we can redirect the traffic out to Gravelines and have that guy help us. So we turn on another VAC system, send the traffic out there, and mitigate from another location. We can turn them all on, so we can handle a very, very large attack in a manner that most people can't. Cool? And there's this article that says the DDoS that didn't break the camel's back, which is probably a little bit frustrating for OVH because Dyn got so much media coverage out of it because, you know, it's Amazon and those type of people being brought down. But again, they thwarted the same attack and got just a little bit of recognition. Any questions? Interesting? Exciting? Something you guys can all use maybe? Good. And then here's everything else we do. Their data centers are highly secure. I'm sure if you guys have gone to SwitchNap, you see the guys with guns, you know, walking around. It looks pretty, all our guards are armed too, but they're just not walking around with MP40s and stuff like that. But one of the cool things we do is when you walk into our data center to do a visit, we actually weigh you before you go in, and then weigh you when you come out, just to make sure you didn't leave something, take something, or whatever. So really high security. They actually have airlocks at the entrance of every data center to do that for us. Fire risk management, every component is redundant. Storage, compute, a dedicated server goes offline, and within minutes, a new one's online, ready to go. Again, things we just couldn't do in vCloud Air. These guys, OVH has automation down to a science, and everything is automated in the data center. Nobody goes over and puts a new server in a rack for you. It just comes online, gets added to your cluster, it's ready to go. And we have human presence at all data centers, et cetera. Anti-hack, anti-spam, anti-phishing, all part of your subscription, no additional cost. So now you see the story around defense in depth. At the edge, we're doing all this for you. And when we get down into your subscription, you'll see where you can layer in your own security in a lot of different ways. All right, so this is within the virtual data center. This is the story we told at vCloud Air. This was kind of our security story that we brought over. Not that OVH wasn't already doing a lot of this stuff, but this is kind of where our core, we didn't have our own DDoS, but our core security components kind of lie right here. So our edge gateway, so at your subscription, so down here, these little VMs represent sort of your org networks down inside your dedicated cloud or your dedicated servers or your SDDC stack running on our hardware. Those guys are sitting behind an edge gateway where we do things like NATing, DHCP, static routing, dynamic routing. We provide load balancing, but the real key though is we provide 2 types of firewalls for you. 5-tuple firewall, just like you're very familiar with if you are operating NSX on premise. It's based on the NSX edge gateway. And then we provide the distributed firewall. So the distributed firewall is enabled as well. So you have east-west protection, right? All this stuff is included in the edge gateway. You're configurable by you. I mean, if you wanted to hire somebody who's a security guru to go in and manage your firewall for you, we don't have any problem with those sort of managed services. But the key thing is, this is in your hands and your control. You decide how you want your security to look from this point forward. And it's leveraging NSX. So it's a kernel mode interface, lines rate speed, zero trust microsegmentation. It enables spoof guard and any other feature that they're going to come out with in NSX. So as they innovate NSX, we will continue to innovate inside our environment by taking advantage of those features. So again, 2 firewalls. North-south traffic is handled by the stateful firewall. You configure the rules, up to 2,000 rules per gateway, 200 sub-interfaces. You configure it, you decide how you want traffic to flow in and out of your data center. You decide what ports you want to block, what protocols, etc. At the distributed firewall level, this is where you decide how the VMs talk across. So all the big hacks that have happened out there, Sony, I suspect that the latest Equifax hack was done by somebody getting into a node in the environment and then east-west hacking. Once they're in, man, it's over, right? Not with microsegmentation. Is everybody here familiar with microsegmentation? Nod of heads. So go hit an NSX session to get a deep dive on it, but it's pretty amazing technology. I can basically set up a dynamic rule that says any server that says web in the name will never allow FTP traffic. This particular application can only talk over this port using this protocol. Very, very granular rules. And we enable spoof guard. So nobody can come in and spoof an IP address to get around those distributed firewall rules. We're going to help you with that as well, using spoof guard. So again, just a key feature of NSX that is enabled by virtue of running the software-defined data center in our cloud on our bare metal. And then it gets really wild here because now I can start integrating third-party partners. In this particular case, if I need encryption at rest, I can leverage high trust and 2 or 3 other vendors that provide it as well. So everything in flight is encrypted between our layer 2 networks, across our VPNs. Everything has encryption enabled where it's needed. At rest, though, we rely on third-party vendors. Now, when vSphere 6.5 rolls out and it has native encryption, we'll be able to take care of that, take advantage of that as well. And here's a slew of partners that we work with. All of these guys. Deep packet introspection by Palo Alto. If you want to do AV type stuff, Trend, McAfee, all of these guys are enabled. If you're an F5 person and you love F5, drop an F5 virtual appliance in our environment. We're ready to go. So let me make that clear though. This is only virtual appliances, right? So there is no way to host physical hardware in our data centers. If it can run on a dedicated server, you can turn a dedicated server into a firewall, a gateway, Palo Alto device, whatever. But if it's virtual, drop it in behind our edge gateway, NAT it through our edge gateway, and everything gets handed off to whatever third-party vendor of choice you have. Cool? Any questions here? Do we have any third-party vendors in here? Any of these guys? I was going to give you a couple minutes to do your spiel. All right, so now extending the data center, right? So vCloud Air really touted some really cool technology. We're very proud of what we did with that. And it allowed us to handle a couple scenarios. And the 3 ones were disaster recovery, which we found every customer is interested in on some level or another. And that story gets better with OVH, because now we support Zerto and Veeam. So backup and disaster recovery. The other one is extending the data center. So data center extension was one of our use case scenarios. And we found that almost every customer scenario fell into one of these 3 buckets. And then the third one is data center replacement, which is less common. But in a lot of cases, people have multiple data centers and they want to consolidate and replace one of them. I had one customer who was actually replacing the entire data center, and on-premise all they were going to have was network gear and their high-performance compute environment. Everything else was going to go into vCloud Air. So once you extend that data center, kind of open yourself up a little bit, right? You're starting to do some really interesting stuff. So we'll talk about the HCX announcement in a second, but the hybrid cloud manager was our solution to create a stretched layer 2 network between your environments and allow you to do secure vMotion from on-premise into the cloud and back. So bi-directional portability of your virtual machines. Not only that, they're doing it over stretch layer 2, so when they land in the data center, they're sitting on the same subnet. They're layer 2 adjacent to the VMs that are sitting on premise. Right? Really cool stuff. No re-IPing, no MAC address changes, none of that stuff. The other cool thing was we're able to take advantage of this for disaster recovery. So people start going, hey, I want to do DR in the cloud, and our simple solution in the past was replicate your VMs, re-IP them, bring them up in vCloud Air. This allows us to replicate the VMs with the same MAC and IP and just run them in the cloud, right? On-premise goes away, and these guys are sitting on the same subnet in a data center far, far away, right? That kind of thing. Everything's encrypted, very portable, secure, and compatible with on-premise vSphere. The other neat thing is the security migration policy. So I always like to say to customers, look, if you're not doing NSX on-premise and you're not doing microsegmentation, if you put your apps in our cloud with microsegmentation enabled, they're more secure than they are on-premise, right? However, if you are doing NSX on-premise, taking advantage of microsegmentation, we can transport the security policy between on-premise and into our cloud. So your VMs bring this is, you know, like I said, I was at VMware in 2000, and this was a ESX 2.0 dream, was that we would have VMs travel with their security with them. And that's enabled through NSX and Hybrid Cloud Manager. Really, really cool stuff. So today the announcement was HCX, and it adds a bunch of additional functionality, allows us to migrate between dissimilar versions of vSphere, replicate between different stacks. So just kind of enhancing the Hybrid Cloud Manager of the past. So no need to upgrade architecture. Again, stretch layer 2 capability, replication for disaster recovery, et cetera. So some big enhancements. This was announced on stage at the keynote, and OVH is one of the 2 providers that provide this today. So we're working very closely with VMware. We actually were co-developing this with them. So their hybrid cloud team, their hybridity team, is coming to us for advice and letting us know what the product set should look like and all that stuff. Pretty cool stuff. Everybody hear about this announcement at the keynote? All right. So this is where it gets really crazy cool, all right? So I almost said VX Rack. VRack is our technology. So Hybrid Cloud Manager can do some cool stuff. It can do a stretch layer 2 between environments. You have to configure it. You drop a set of appliances on premise, connect it to the cloud, create the stretch layer 2 from a distributed support group into the cloud, et cetera. Part of your subscription that you get with vCloud, with any subscription, OpenStack, SDDC, dedicated servers, VRack is enabled and ready for you to use. All right? So it allows us to create a global VLAN across our backbone. Gentlemen, if you could fill out the surveys, we'd appreciate it. Catch you on your way out. So we can do a customer configurable global VLAN between any of our data centers, any of our subscriptions. So you can literally stand up OpenStack, vSphere as a service, or SDDC, dedicated servers, point and click, drop them into the VRack, and we'll create a stretch layer 2 global a global VLAN across our entire backbone. So all the virtual machines are effectively sitting on the same subnet in any data center in the world. Nobody can do this. And it's literally a drag and drop interface. It's hardware backed, configured by us, but managed by you. Right? Really, really cool stuff. I mean, if you can imagine the kind of things you could do with this, it's pretty amazing, right? And we also have VRack Connect, which lets you do, very similarly to Hybrid Cloud Manager, HCX, do a stretch from one of our data centers onto on-premise as well. So again, just extending that VLAN to your on-premise data center. So that's it. 30 minutes. I'll give you guys back half your time. Any questions at all? We'll go ahead and do a QA right now.
Yeah, we have some questions. First of all, thank you for the presentation.
Okay.
Really appreciate your
She's going to bring you a mic. This is being recorded, so you're going to be famous on YouTube later.
And really impressed about what you are doing in terms of data centers and the cloud services. I have a couple of questions. First one is that you mentioned in slide 18 that you provide some perimeter security controls in front of the cloud infrastructure.
Yeah.
The question is that, are you implemented this for all of your cloud customers? I mean, public, private cloud, so all of the traffic that pass to the network is going to pass to this firewall or these security controls?
Yes, they all have, it's just part of your subscription. You don't pay anything extra for it. It's at your hands to configure the firewall. So we had the pre-firewall we configure, and then the next level firewall is yours to configure, and then everything from the edge gateway behind is configurable by you.
So all the traffic is going to pass through it, and once you subscribe, you're going to enable the security control about it. Okay, great. The second question, also you mentioned regarding the DDoS, that you provide the DDoS protection for all of your customers, free of charge, there is no cost. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Great. Another question, if customer have, now as you mentioned, you have like the public cloud and also you have the private cloud.
Right.
So both of customer have some workload in the public cloud, and in the same time he have private cloud. How you do to connect them? To connect his workload in private and public cloud. Is there any mechanism that you do, or you make it normal through layer over the internet?
So VRAC is the answer to that. So again, I can have OpenStack private cloud. I can have OpenStack public cloud. I can have vSphere as a service, which is our private cloud offering, and both of those can be connected over the same network if you want to. I mean, they can also obviously operate in isolation, depending on what your use case is. You know, the OpenStack offering is more of a development kind of focus.
Yeah, what I understood for VRAC is more that if you have some workloads in different data centers, and we're talking about if you have the same workload in the same data center, are you doing like kind of layer 2 connectivity between these workload, or because it's different stacks, so you make it through layer 3?
Yeah. So we can even do it between data centers, right?
Okay. Last question. Actually, I have more too, but I want to give the time for the people. You're using now in the public cloud, I think you have specific SDN that you are using it. And also in NX you have, or in the private cloud you have different SDN. Are you doing any kind of integration between both SDNs in public and private cloud, or it's like totally separate infrastructure?
So once we created that VLAN connection, you might be able to, so you're talking about creating SDN connection between a public and a private cloud offering, leveraging NSX?
Maybe, yeah. This is the question. Are you doing this, or?
We're not doing anything to enable that. Could you get creative and maybe do something on your own? Possibly, but that's not kind of a core offering. It's not like a part of our product set.
Okay, good. Last question.
No, go ahead. It may not be any other
You
question.
mentioned some of the partner list, third-party partners. I think all of them in the private cloud offering, right, is not in the public cloud. Correct?
If it's a virtual appliance, there's probably no reason you couldn't drop one in behind, the edge gateway as well. I mean, I don't see any reason why you couldn't.
Yeah, you can, but
huh?
Technically,
there's nothing to stop you, I don't think.
Yeah, but right now is it available? I mean, both are available. Like now, if I have some VMs or workload in the OpenStack or in the public cloud, are these services available, or that only in the, if I have private cloud only?
Say that again?
I mean, the third-party solution.
Appliances, right?
Yeah. Is it only available if I have private cloud?
Under VMware.
Yeah, on the VMware, they're definitely, because most of these appliances are built to run on vSphere. So they would probably work in the OpenStack environment too, the public cloud as well. I just don't see any reason why not. I mean, do you?
Is there any SDN integration or something?
He said no, it's not.
Everything that was shown there was meant to be like third-party. Sorry.
Everything on the slide there was depicting like third-party vendors that can integrate with vCenter, because we do expose the API in the like vSphere as a service type offering. A lot of those are possible to integrate with NSX as well. So like Trend Micro, Symantec, a lot of these are the agentless antivirus providers and things like that you can implement in this environment. You could run these virtual machines or appliances in public cloud, but you won't have access to everything that's underneath our public cloud. So like in this vSphere as a service type offering, you do have access to vCenter, whereas you don't have access to all of the OpenStack applications and things from a public cloud perspective. It's more of a consumable thing and less of you having to manage the underlying infrastructure like you would for the public private cloud.
Yeah. So the access to vCenter in the private cloud is probably key to that, since you can't get to the underpinnings in the OpenStack offering. But if it's something that can be simply dropped in and it's just a VM and it doesn't need any integration, it might work. Yeah. And there's probably OpenStack versions of some of these appliances that would run on an OpenStack environment, right? I mean, they may have some OpenStack automation and integration built into it.
Yeah, in fact, there are many, and there are some. Because we ask this because we have, gone through that experience. So I would like to see what you have done. Maybe you have done something better than us, so we can, contribute or share some experience.
Well, give me your card afterwards, and we'll hook you up with somebody local. Where you at? Where you located?
Well, in Saudi Arabia.
Where?
Saudi Arabia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
we have probably our Bangalore guys would be the closest guys to you, but yeah. We'll have people there eventually.
Yes, maybe we will discuss some points later on.
Okay, or come by our booth too.
Yeah, of course.
All our product managers will be there. Any other questions? So what do you guys think? Is there a level of interest? I mean, this is hopefully all new information to you guys. One of the reasons I said I came over here was because of the amazing technology. Very exciting and interesting. This is all stuff we dreamed about doing in vCloud Air and just could never do it. It was always more complex and required lots of moving parts, and here it's just kind of ingrained into their culture. These guys built their first data center in 2003, so they predate Amazon. These guys have been building data centers longer than Amazon. So this is some pretty baked, proven technology. We're just happy to be bringing it to the USA, so that's kind of where our excitement comes from. So I guess we'll call it a wrap. Please do fill out your survey. There's going to be a link in your app, I believe, that you can go into and fill it out. We really appreciate the feedback, good, bad, and ugly. We want it all. Let us know. Remember, we're a global hyperscale cloud provider. We got 20 years history. We are building data centers everywhere in the world. So like I said, we're going to increase our data center. We're going to double them by 2020. So we'll have a footprint everywhere. Certainly in the Middle East, I'm sure will be somewhere we'll be looking at. Again, the DDoS, VRAC, all that stuff is built in and baked into your subscription. There's no extra cost. You enable it, and it's really the best DDoS protection in the industry. Nobody can touch it. It's unparalleled. Follow us, Twitter, etc. All the social media links. You guys get all this stuff. And then here's our other session. So Trey, like I said, has one coming. Did I call you Tyler earlier? It's Trey Tyler. I thought I said something called you Tyler. So Trey has a session coming up at 3:30. It's that second one, right? Or no, which one? Yeah. So that's his session. If you want to get some more in depth, again, he's a tech marketing guru, so he can really get in the weeds with you guys if needed. At this point, I'll go ahead and let you guys go, and we'll hang out for a little bit if you have any other questions. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.